I'm not dead. Hey guys, it's TheSlickCuber again. It's been a long time since I've made a video. I don't want to go on and on about my personal life. Basically, I'm 25 years old, adult life happens. I got caught up in other stuff, hobbies, my job, all this other things happening in my life. So it's just been a while since I've had time to sit down and make a cubing video.
For the love of God, cherish it.
Jennifer, why don't you try reading out loud for a minute, okay?
You gotta cherish it. You do.
I also took a little bit of a break from cubing for a couple months just because I found it was starting to feel a lot like work and I wanted to kind of wait until cubing came back to me as something that I just really love doing. Sometimes it's good to take a break from your hobbies so that you can kind of recapture that love that you originally had. So all that out of the way, today we're reviewing the Weilong WR M. First, I gotta give a quick shout out to my sponsor, D-FantiX. You guys should know all this by now. I've been talking about D-FantiX a lot. They're a great seller on Amazon. They're my favorite place to get cubes because I'm really impatient and the Amazon Prime 2-day shipping is really, really nice when you're waiting for those new cubes. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can buy this cube on D-FantiX. Now this cube was sought after for a while because a lot of people liked the GTS3M, but they didn't really like the ridges around the sides. I didn't mind the ridges that much. I find that it did help with my grip a little bit and it did keep me from dropping the cube, though that might have just been because of this cube's stellar performance. I would be interested to see if they made a GTS3 exactly like this one without ridges, if it actually did help with grip. But this is probably the closest we're gonna get, and it does have a slightly different feeling than the GTS3, and not just because it doesn't have ridges. Now before we get too much into comparisons, let's just look at what you get right out of the box. Now obviously you get the cube, but what you also get is this cool little accessories box that comes with the cube. Now it comes with, of course, all of your usual, like you get a little screwdriver that Moyu always includes, and you have their new tension adjusting tool, but they also include basically a spare of all the hardware except for the cubies themselves. You can see that you get extra springs, screws, little core pieces right here, magnets. You can basically build another one of these cubes if you were to just get more of the actual little cubies themselves. Like, they give you extras of everything. I've seen some people say that these springs are actually different. I've seen some people say that they're stronger. I've seen some people say that they're looser. But everything that I can find on official sites like cube selling stores and that kind of stuff says that they're just extra springs. So I can't really say for sure whether they are different. If someone knows for sure, just let me know in the comment section because I'm really curious myself. Now the cube itself is basically what you would expect. It feels a lot like a GTS3, but without the ridges. The plastic feels very similar. The WR maybe feels a little bit softer almost. The plastic feels almost a little bit more, I don't know, high quality as opposed to kind of like a cheap plastic. And I'll probably say this a lot when comparing these cubes. I do think that the GTS3M, the plastic feels a little cheap. It feels kind of hollow and thin and it's kind of clacky. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. This is actually my favorite cube now, even with this out. This is still my main. I love this cube a lot, but the plastic does feel a little bit light and airy and almost a little bit cheap when compared to things like the 356X or this new one. But other than that, it's very similar to the GTS3. It has a similar kind of clicky clacky feel. It's very snappy. It's pretty stable in your hands, though maybe a little bit less than the GTS3, and we'll get into that when we get into the comparisons. The corner cutting, of course, is perfect, as you would expect with all speed cubes nowadays. It seems like cube manufacturers have really nailed down how to get awesome corner cutting, no matter what kind of mechanisms they put on the inside. The magnet strength actually feels a little bit lighter than the GTS3. You can see how smooth the layers are. There's not even really a click at the end. Like, it kind of just glides into it. Whereas with the GTS3, I feel like it kind of clicks. You can see that at the end there, it kind of snaps into place when I get to close to the end. Whereas this one, when I get to the end, it doesn't really do that. It kind of just glides. So the magnets definitely feel weaker. And I don't know if they have weaker magnets in here, or maybe it's just because the plastic, like I said, it feels a little bit heavier. It feels a little bit thicker. Moyu has done an amazing job once again of making a 3x3 that's very main worthy, even for people at the top levels of competition. I can definitely see this being the mains of top speedcubers setting world records, people who are a lot better than me. There's not a lot to say about this cube because it doesn't really do much new. It's kind of just like an altered kind of spin-off version of the GTS3. So let's just go ahead and compare it to what cubes are out right now. Now, the main comparison is obviously going to be with the GTS 3 itself, and I've kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. A huge difference, obviously, is it doesn't have the ridges, and because it doesn't have the ridges, it does look a little bit smaller. It doesn't really feel smaller, it's just, it doesn't have those ridges, so if that was a big negative to the GTS 3, you'll probably like this a little bit more because of that. Now, as far as the feeling of the cubes go, it's actually kind of interesting. The WRM feels like a mix of the GTS 3 and the 356X. It kind of has the response of a GTS 3. It's kind of snappy, it's kind of clacky, the plastic feels similar, but it has this very smooth feeling like the 356X. The 356X is just smooth. I mean, you guys saw my review. It's super smooth, it's super slick, it's really quiet and soft feeling. It's really nice. And the WRM feels like MoYu took this cube and decided to make it a little bit closer to the 356X because of how many people liked that feeling in this one. Now, with that comes a downside of the 356X that I personally didn't like, in that the WRM feels a little bit more flexible. It feels a little bit more morphy. And this is one reason when I first started using the 356X, I was like, wow, this is gonna be my main. This cube feels fantastic. The plastic feels high quality. It's soft and smooth and quiet, and it's just incredible. But the more and more solves I did on it, I was getting weird lockups because in the middle of moves, especially like wide moves like this NB perm I use, I was getting lockups, especially if like I was nervous doing a solve in front of people, if you're in like a competition or something. I was getting lockups when I did it, and I ended up going back to the GTS 3 because I never really get lockups on this thing. The GTS 3 is very stable. It's always in a cube shape. It always locks into place when I do layer turns. And I find that the WR is kind of like the 356X, where when I practice at home, it's fine. But any time that nerves come into play at all, I start getting lockups and layers start kind of morphing around each other. And my fingers are kind of slipping because they're kind of getting stuck. Maybe it's just how I set it up. Maybe I put too much Traxxas 50K in it. I mean, all of this is really just opinions anyway. It feels like an exact mix between the GTS 3 and the 356X. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That could be something where you guys are like, oh wow, that sounds like the best cube ever, and you're probably right. It probably is the exact cube for you. But to me, the GTS 3 with the ridges was like the perfect cube. Also, I guess I should touch on the ridges. I don't mind the ridges at all. I don't even notice them when I'm solving. So the WRM not having ridges isn't really a plus or a negative for me. It's just kind of a thing. It's just, okay, it doesn't have ridges, cool. Now, I kind of touched on how it compares to the 356X in my last comparison, but these two actually do feel a lot alike. I would actually almost say that the WRM feels more like the 356X than it does the GTS 3. But that is probably a huge plus for a lot of people, especially since the WRM is cheaper than the 356X. So if you wanted that soft, quiet, smooth feeling of the 356X, but you didn't want to pay top dollar for it, this is definitely the cube for you. So if you are looking for something that's a nice mix between this and the GTS 3, this is a perfect cube for you. Comparing it to the old GAN SM, there's not a lot to say about these. One thing I will say about these two are the layer turns feel the same to me. Maybe it's just how I set it up, but they feel like they have the exact same weight behind them. If you liked how the layer turns on the old SM, you're gonna like how the layers turn on this. It feels the same, maybe a little bit lighter, but it has this kind of rounded softness to it that the GAN SM had, and I really like that. There's not really much to say between these two. I can go more in depth if you guys want me to. Let me know in the comments like usual. Now, cubes like the MGC and this is a Vault 3, a magnetic Vault 3. These are definitely a lot thicker than this, and that's something you would expect with MoYu. The GTS 2, the GTS 3, and now the WRM are all kind of on the lighter, clickier side, whereas with MGC and with the Valk, they're kind of on the heavier side. And this can be good for people, especially like me, who have a heavier turning style, who like it to be a little bit thicker. And I'm actually really excited for a new Vault cube to come out because I loved the Vault 3, and I'm really excited to see what they can do with the Vault 3 with all this new magnets and technology that's coming out nowadays. These two are just kind of heavier, they're thicker, they have a kind of heavier, thicker feel. The magnets are definitely lesser in these ones. They don't really click into place. This one definitely, the magnet strength is a little bit more than these two, but a little bit less than the GTS 3. So that's basically all I have for you guys. So that's basically all I have for you guys. Overall, this is a really great cube and it compares well with these other ones. The main point I wanted to make in this review is that it feels like an exact mix of the 356X and the GTS 3. If that sounds like your ideal cube, I can almost guarantee you that this is your ideal cube. I should have a rather late review on the Vault 2 coming up here soon too. It's an awesome 2x2 and I love it a lot. Thanks again to D-FantiX for sending me the cube. Thank you guys for staying subscribed to me while I was on a huge break, and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye.